You have in your possession a definitive source of wrestling information. I'm not talking about ringside rumors. I'm talking about guts. I'm talking about hanging and banging in the gym. This tape shows you the basic training necessary to become a professional wrestler. If you got what it takes, this tape's for you. If you're a wrestling fan, you'll enjoy it too. If you've just been mouthing off, you'll get black and blue. Professional wrestling is one of the hottest spectator sports in America today. It's considered by many to be our contribution to the martial arts. Yet a significant percentage of the fans do not appreciate the extraordinary effort required to become a professional wrestler. How to Become a Professional Wrestler presents the behind-the-scenes look at what it really takes to become a professional wrestler. The true art of wrestling isn't about flashy clothes, circus animals in the ring. Wrestling is a challenge of one man's skills against another. That's what we're here to talk about. With the help of veterans like Captain Lou Albano, Tony Altomare, Domenic DENUCCI, Mario Mancini, Ken Passariello, and the living legend himself, Bruno Sammartino. Along with a host of other professionals, we will review 5 essential elements of professional wrestling. For those of you considering a career in this sport, don't risk injury even before getting started. This video is not intended to replace a personal and professional instruction of a qualified wrestling school.
I turned pro July 31st, 1984. By August 16th, I was in Rhode Island. It was my second professional match, and I entered the ring with David Schultz. I locked up with him. He looked me dead in the eye. I was 18 years old. He said, "Kid, welcome to the World Wrestling Federation," and he broke my nose in 3 places.
A lot of hard work, a lot of if you have in the ear, or just pretend you want to be a wrestler. You have to put everything you have if you want to go all the way on top.
Getting started is never easy. The endurance required to establish yourself is just as important as your degree of talent and skill. It takes a positive mental attitude to succeed. So, what then is a positive mental attitude? We decided to ask an expert. David Owinski Jr. is president of Personal Development Concepts, a leadership workshop designed to help you understand the necessary elements of a positive mental attitude.
The distinction between those that are just kidding themselves and those people that are really committed falls into 2 abilities or 2 categories of thought. The first is people that are just kidding themselves are not in action. And people that are serious about success, people that are serious about achieving their goals are in action. They're moving, they're doing things to bring about their goals. That doesn't mean they're always successful, and it doesn't mean their actions are always the right actions. But you can't know you've started down the wrong path until you've tried one. Once that has begun, the second most important characteristic of a person that's going to achieve success, as opposed to someone who's just kidding themselves, is persistence. We have found in our research and our reading that persistence is the single most identifiable trait of a winning personality. Now, this doesn't mean you be one track and that you think about only one way to do it. In fact, that's almost a guaranteed recipe for failure. Often, our first most obvious thought is not going to be the most successful. So, when you look at role models and you do research and you read or watch videos or actually hire consultants or talk to people, find out the 6 or 10 or 15 or 30 different ways that other people have achieved success in the field that you choose. Once you've done this, you've got a plan, you can organize it, you can do the research to make sure you've got the skills, you've got your guns loaded, so to speak, so that when you go out and go for it, you'll be completely ready to go.
The ability to persist is crucial to success. Former President Calvin Coolidge once said, "Nothing in the world can replace persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. The slogan, "Press on," has solved and always will solve the problems of the human race. This spirit of persistence can most clearly be exemplified in the testimonies of the wrestling professionals we spoke with.
The key thing about this is, okay, they don't know who you are. They don't know what is inside of you. Okay, now if David broke my nose and he's never seen me after that, it wasn't meant to be. I don't belong there. I shouldn't be there. But I came back 2 weeks later to do the next shot with bandages still on my nose. They see that, they know it. Whether it's a kid or not, you belong there. You've got the guts to walk back in ready to suffer another broken nose or a separated shoulder or a torn knee. You're ready to go.
Oh, you're absolutely right. It takes a lot of within her heart, it takes a lot of sincerity, a lot of goodwill, and a lot of hard work. Nothing comes easy. There's a lot of hard work involved in everything. And I'm sure that the end result will be profitable if they stick to what they're doing and give us 100% of themselves.
You want to be sure you look good. You want to be sure that you try excessively hard to win. You always give a good match. You always remember, bottom line is where your money comes from, which is the fans, all right? You're going to go into the ring. You're going to give a good match. I kind of look at wrestling, always have, as you know, we're actually modern-day gladiators. That's what we are. We're paid to go into the ring and beat the guy up using whatever form necessary there is to win. If you don't win, you're going to do your best to win, all right? And people respond to that. People appreciate that. People don't want to see you run away. People want to see you do your best to win.
You get out of something what you put in. In other words, you got to give 50 to get 50. You know what I mean? I can't give it to you all. I can give you 30 years of experience of professional wrestling, but you have to give me, you have to meet me halfway. And if you don't, like I say, we have an evaluation period, and then we either ask you probably not to return because you're wasting your time and your money, which of course we're not interested in. We're interested in making athletes. And if you're not going to come in here and you're going to bluff it, and we're going to find you out quick because we know the difference between somebody with sincerity and somebody that's in there just for a bluff or somebody who's got some wild fantasy.
You have to be hungry. I'm as hungry as it gets. I want this so bad. I can taste it. I've tasted it before. You know, to wrestle full-time every single day, it's a natural high. You want to be a wrestler, you better sit down with yourself and you better ask yourself, do I want to do this for the rest of my life? Because that's what it is, for the rest of your life. And if you can't take it, well, come on in the ring and try it out, and you'll know. The first time you fall, you'll know whether you can take it or not. You just got to have the heart. You got to have the determination. You can mimic Rocky as much as you want, Rocky Balboa in Hollywood, but that's about what it takes. You have to have it. You have to have it here. Not here. It's got to be here.
Some of the most important training for any athlete starts in the kitchen. Whoever says you are what you eat was absolutely right. Normally, people eat 3 square meals a day, but an athlete requires 6 small meals a day. This is because it's easier to digest a smaller meal than a larger one. Bran cereal. That's why it's important for an athlete, especially a wrestler, to maintain a balanced diet. You're going to have the right amounts of protein, fat, carbohydrates, enzymes, vitamins, and amino acid supplements to be in shape. It's important to know which store sells the freshest foods and leanest meats. The best place a serious bodybuilder can go is the finest market in town. Protein food should be at the top of your list. You'll find the highest concentration of proteins in foods like fish, lean red meats, and chicken, just to name a few. Fish, any kind of fish, contains one of the highest protein levels in the meat group. It's especially good because fish has one of the lowest fat contents. You want to make sure those cholesterol levels stay low, so never eat fried fish. As a matter of fact, fried foods in general are an athlete's worst enemy. Always make sure your fish you eat is either baked or broiled. Red meats are the second best source of protein because of the high content of amino acids. Always look for the reddest and leanest of meats too. Avoid fatty meats like pork and bacon. The human body needs very little cholesterol to function properly. You'll find a higher content of fat in red meats than white meats. Chicken contains less protein than red meat, but it contains substantially less fat. The most important thing to remember when eating chicken, though, is to remove the skin. Skin is very high in cholesterol and fat and can trash any athlete's diet. The major consideration in your diet depends upon a specific need for building bulk. Eat more red meats. For body definition, lean towards a diet in chicken and fish. Dairy products will help you bulk up. 2% milk is a good source of vitamin A and D, but the best dairy food a bodybuilder can eat is egg whites. Don't eat the yolks. That's where all the cholesterol is. Egg whites are higher in protein than a lot of other foods, and cottage cheese and yogurts are also good for bulking up. Dairy products are like red meats, though. They're higher in fats than a lot of other foods and not highly recommended for body sculptors. I know what you're thinking. Dairy products, ice cream. Forget it, too much sugar. Carbohydrates are more easily digested than proteins. Also, they're a good quick source of energy. A good place to get these carbohydrates is in breads, cereals, and whole grain pasta. Your best bet is to eat whole wheat bread and 100% bran cereal. What you're getting out of these foods is fiber, 0 calories. Do you hear me? Fiber contains no calories and normalizes body fat levels. Keep this in mind though, not everyone will be ready for a new high fiber diet. If you've had any intestinal trouble of any kind, contact your doctor before making any radical changes in your eating habits. Finally, just because you may not be a meat eater doesn't mean you can't become a bodybuilder. Fruits and vegetables contain many of the same basic nutritional requirements as meats. They're best eaten raw or steamed, but don't boil them. When you boil vegetables, you're washing out all the vitamins that make them healthy for you. You might as well drink the boiled water. Okay, let's review. Fish is the best food to eat for lean protein intake. There's very little fat in fish. Chicken is the second best. Just remember to remove the skin. Red meat has a high content of amino acids, but also has a higher content of fat. Dairy products will help you increase your body weight and size. Eat 4 egg whites a day to start with. Breads, bran cereals, whole grain pastas provide fiber and carbohydrates. Fruits and vegetables are good for vitamins. Eating right is important, but drinking right is important too. A daily intake of 8 to 10 glasses of water is vital to a bodybuilder. It lubricates the joints and muscles. It helps digest food and cleans out the body. Talk to your doctor to get started on a proper diet, then be prepared to stick with that diet. I'm talking about staying in shape for the next phase of this training as a professional wrestler, pumping iron. I'm talking about hanging and banging with the big boys. I'm talking about physical training.
My key to my success was that when I came from Europe, in Europe they had Greco-Roman wrestling, there was no freestyle wrestling, so I got very interested as a very young boy. But when I came to America, in the high school that I went to in the city of Pittsburgh, there was no wrestling, but I was playing football, and my coach knew the wrestling coach up at the University of Pittsburgh, a man by the name of Rex Perry, a very good coach. And so I used to go up at Pitt 4 nights a week to work out with the team there. The opposite 3 nights, I'd be at the Y pumping iron. I did that for many, many years, and I used to work out with the iron as much as 4 and 5 hours a day. And I'd work out on the mat with the pit wrestlers an average of a couple hours a day. So I did that religiously for many, many years, and that's how I prepared myself.
That is the key. The key is conditioning, Tasmanian. The key has always been conditioning. You know what I mean? Especially in today's market where professional wrestling has become so popular throughout the world, throughout the whole country, that right now it takes a polished athlete to be recognized. Tip-top shape, tip-top conditions.
Basically, a workout should consist of about 3.5 to 4 hours of concentrating on the body parts very hard and heavy.
Does this training ever end?
No, it goes on. As long as your career lasts, so does the weight training. If you want to stay on top, if you want to be the best, there's no question about it. The best today in the world are the best because every day they might take that plane and land, and the first thing they do when their foot hits the concrete is they turn to somebody next to them. They don't care who it is. Where's the gym? That's all they want to know. Where's the gym?
Conditioning is a result of rigorous and daily workout. A good workout should exercise all the muscles of your body. You may even find some you didn't know you had. which is why it's necessary to have a thorough medical examination before beginning any extensive workout program. To explain this point in better detail, we spoke with Dr. Frank Civitries, a member of the Pennsylvania State Athletic Advisory Board. He told us what a good physician looks for during an exam.
My personal recommendations would be that anyone who is interested in participating in wrestling should recognize that it is a contact and rigorous sport, and because of that should pursue and obtain a complete history and physical. The history exam should include past medical history, such as previous surgical procedures or illnesses that have occurred, family history, such as sudden death which has occurred in immediate relatives, and any other congenital or genetic problems that have occurred in your immediate family. The physical exam should also be quite extensive, and I think should include an ear and eye exam specifically to determine visual acuity, the patient's depth perception, an ear exam to determine the intactness of the tympanic membrane or the eardrum so that a balance mechanism is maintained. Also very important is a cardiovascular exam, which would include what we would call an auscultatory exam, which is essentially the physician listening with a stethoscope on the chest to determine any abnormalities such as heart murmurs or irregularities. Also a respiratory exam which would hopefully screen any participants that would have a history of asthma or bronchospastic disease that would manifest as asthma. Also an abdominal exam to determine whether there are any hernias or previous surgical procedures. Finally, very important would be a musculoskeletal exam to determine the integrity of the joints of the body and to rule out any joint instability that the patient might have. There should be special attention made to muscular development, particularly in the neck and shoulder region.
Once your examination is complete, you should find a qualified instructor to tailor your workout to meet your body's specific needs. He or she can determine your requirements for a winning physique. No one could be more qualified to offer insight into this matter than former Mr. Universe, Ken Passarello. Ken is the owner of Passarello's Quest, a gymnasium in Orange, Connecticut, suited for both the bodybuilder and the wrestler.
Depending on what you wanted to do in wrestling and depending on what kind of a body type you had, that would really depend on the training. If you were an immense wrestler, if you take a wrestler that's 400 pounds and he's 6'5", he would be training completely differently than a wrestler that was 5'10" and 200 pounds. So we have to take the body type of the wrestler and then adapt the training to the body type.
Okay, and a coach found at a gymnasium similar to this could very well tell you what type of working out that you'd have to do to reach, I think, what they call the meso body, correct?
You're absolutely correct. The problem is, very simply, there are not many gyms throughout the United States that have both the capabilities of bodybuilding and the capabilities of wrestling in one gym. That's the difficulty. You know, you'll go into some gyms that are totally well equipped for bodybuilding, and then you'll go into other wrestling schools that are totally well equipped for wrestling, but the two usually never come together, and it's very important that they do.
Okay, we agree, which is why this particular segment is being produced. So tell us a little bit about just general bodybuilding as to what you do when you enter into the gymnasium. Or, for that matter, let's say the Tasmanian who's never worked out in his life, I've never lifted a weight, would like to begin to bodybuild. What would I do?
Okay, first of all, somebody in your position, we probably would put you on a bodybuilding routine, a few powerlifting movements for size, and then a few body sculpting movements to shape the body. You would be doing a little bit of each. If we, let's go back to that example of the guy that was 400 pounds. There would be no necessity to take a man who is 6'5" or 6'4" and 400 pounds and sculpt his body. What we want to do with that gentleman is we want to make him conditioned aerobically so that he can withstand the punishment that's necessary in the ring. We take that other gentleman, the example I gave you before, that was maybe 5'9" or 6 foot and had a decent physique. We would take him and we would do aerobics, but we would concentrate more on bodybuilding, body sculpting movements so that we could enhance his physique. We could make him look better in the ring.
Okay, what about a skinny little guy like me?
Well, first of all, we're going to do diet, okay? That's the first thing we're going to take care of with somebody like you, and we're going to adjust your diet so that the training will be used. Very important. I mean, you can train every day for 2 hours, but if you're not eating properly, you're basically wasting your time. So we're going to adjust your diet such that you would have a high quality protein intake, I would say about 1 gram per pound. We would then increase your carbohydrate, usually the complex carbohydrates, so you'd have long-term energy. We would eliminate all fats from your diet, and we would probably add in some simple carbohydrates, which are fruits. You'd eat all natural foods, no salt, no sugar. It's a very difficult lifestyle, but it does pay off because when you train, you can convert you can actually change your body and expand the muscle cells and decrease the fat cells.
Okay, so once I have my body prepared physically to enter into the gym, as I'm eating properly, I would then do what as to begin to work out?
Well, it's difficult because in this gym here, what we do is we do it both at the same time. We will take a, a would-be wrestler who joins up in the wrestling school. We would take a look at the gentleman and make an estimation as to where we want him to be. If the wrestling school takes place, for example, on Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday, we would make sure he was training on the days he wasn't wrestling. And the diet, of course, goes along with that. That is the optimum situation. We would hope he follows through. Unfortunately, there are a lot of would-be wrestlers that the only thing they want to do is get in the ring. It's a two-way street. And the only way that you get to be big time, so to speak, in the sport of wrestling is by putting the time in the gym. Not only in the ring, but in the gym.
So it's not just a matter of being able to take the falls and the punches, it's also a matter of looking good physically.
Looking good relates directly to money in wrestling. I mean, that is the bottom line. I'm going to say it. I think anybody else with 2 cents of brains is going to say it. If you don't look good, you're not going to make a lot of money, all right? Now, looking good for wrestling, I think, falls into basically 2 categories. You have the type of wrestler, and I won't mention any names, but you have the type of wrestler that has a phenomenal physique. That physique has to be enhanced. That physique has to be kept looking good, and that relates directly to money. Then you have the other kind of wrestler that does not have a beautiful physique, but he is immense. He is a mountain. Again, we don't have to mention any names. I'm sure names come to your viewers right off the bat. But we take that gentleman and we make sure he stays in aerobic shape. We make sure he doesn't get small. He doesn't lose weight. He stays big. He stays immense. So we make an estimation as to what a person or a wrestler should be, what his best points are, and we work towards that.
That's fantastic. Okay, now, many of you may not be aware of this, but I learned this prior to the interview with Ken. Ken is a professional wrestler. And do you have a stage name, Ken?
Yes, I go by the Prince of Pain.
So you've wrestled for how many years?
For the last 5 years, all over the world.
So if you've been paying attention, you've learned that Ken was a bodybuilder for some 7-8 years prior to ever entering into the wrestling ring. Now, I'm not going to ask you how much money you earn, but you earn substantial money as a wrestler.
Oh, yes, very, very much so. And it's directly related, I think, to the way I look. I mean, the fact of the matter is I'm in great physical shape. That enables me to take punishment in the ring. There is no way that I could take the punishment that's necessary without being in physical shape because I'm not exactly 7 feet tall, okay? So I have to make up for my height in being big physique-wise. And actually, I trained 14 years before I even walked into the ring.
So, in a sense, you're saying you don't have to be man mountain to be a professional wrestler successfully.
Absolutely correct. In fact, my theory when I go into a match, if the gentleman outweighs me by 50, 60 pounds, which is conceivable many times, is to stay away from him for at least 5 to 7 minutes and make him work. That way there, by the end of 5 to 7 minutes, if I haven't lost, chances are I'll win because he's so tired he can't do much to me.
And finally, you would say you attribute your success as a professional wrestler worldwide to being a bodybuilder and a body sculptor necessarily, as opposed to being the biggest, greatest athlete.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt about it. Luckily, because of all the years I worked in bodybuilding, I have a decent physique. That also helps. But the other thing is I'm in very good aerobic condition. So a 20-minute match or a 40-minute match, if it's ever necessary, really doesn't eliminate, my aerobic capacity. I'm usually always ready to go.
Now, I'm not going to ask you your age, but are you over 35?
Without a doubt.
And here we have Mario Mancini with a new wrestling student showing that to be a professional wrestler, you must hit like a football player. This enables you to feel what he has. Check him out.
Come back. Come back.
It also enables you to show him what you're made out of. You try to get him in a headlock. Feel his stuff.
As you possibly can. Okay, when you got body slammed, suplexed, clotheslined, anything, you don't want to break a rib. You don't want to get anything broken that'll hurt you so bad that you'll never be able to wrestle again.
And now we have Mario Mancini showing the correct procedure of falling. Keep your chin tucked and you land on your back to distribute your weight. You do not land on your head or your buttocks. And in the beginning, you will fall about 3,000 times, all part of your basic training to become a professional wrestler. These measures are naturally taken so that you do not injure yourself.
Good. Do it again. Get soft. Get it. Up. Up. Get slow. Now will Mario Mancini show us the 6 basic wrestling moves.
1, the basic lockup. The headlock. The twisted arm bar. The full Nelson. The go behind. And the infamous hammerlock.
The minute you enter the ring, the most important thing to do is get a feel of it. This will give you a sense of bearing, and that may be the only advantage you'll have over an opponent. There are some very specific things you should look for.
So when you first enter the ring, what you want to do is go over to the corner. You want to feel the stiffness of the ropes and make sure that they're secure. You want to feel the buckle, touch it, check it out. You want to kick the bottom rope, make sure everything is secure. You want to check the steel beam and the steel supports in the corner. You want to check the canvas for any slack so that when you're running in the ring, you can recognize that your opponent might recognize, if he's very experienced, that the canvas is loose. And if he gets you in a particular situation, you may, when you're exhausted, trip and fall on the canvas. You got to make sure that it's nice and stiff so that the surface you're wrestling on is fine. Because if it's loose and you get your toe caught, you're done. That guy is going to be on you.
Now let's watch as two of my buddies, Carmine Albano and Billy the Kid, work out at Ken Passarello's Quest Gymnasium in Orange, Connecticut. Tony ALTOMARE provides the color.
It is. Right now you got two gentlemen in the ring, two graduates of Tony ALTOMARE's wrestling school here in Orange, Connecticut. These fellas right now are demonstrating go-behinds, agility, the ability, the coordination it takes to go in there and make all these maneuvers. Right now, both of these fellas have about 9 or 10 months into this professional school, and you'll see that in the black tights, Albano in the multicolored tights is Billy the Kid. And these fellas both have great-looking bodies because they do a lot of working out. And right now, they're demonstrating to us some of the moves. That was a tackle. That's a tackle. This is a hip toss that Albano's demonstrating right now. And you'll notice that on these bumps, which we call bumps, that look specifically tough, are not that severe on these particular kind of individuals because of the fact.
Yeah, but I noticed both their backs are already red, and I see a scratch.
Yeah, but right now they're susceptible to punishment. They're susceptible to taking a little bit of a thrashing because that's the way they've been trained. And as we go down the line, we take these fellas from the Quest and transfer them into the professional ranks. You'll notice that they're making some nice little moves, nice quick ins and outs, and yet they've only had about 9 or 10 months into professional wrestling school per se. You notice anything, Tasmanian, or is there anything you'd like to ask me pertaining to what they're doing?
Well, they look smooth.
They are smooth. You'll see. They're working in a 16-foot square right now, which is about 4 feet short of exactly an actual size of a ring is 20-foot square. They're working in a 4-foot short ring now, which gives them a lot less room to function in and makes it much more difficult, you understand? But these are a couple of polished athletes, and J.J. RIZZO is also a polished athlete in our business. These fellows already have been exposed to the outside world.
And all three have a chance of actually making money.
All three have a very, very good chance of making making the ranks of professional wrestling. Yeah, they all do, yes, they certainly do. We're located up here in Orange, Connecticut, as you know, Tasmanian, and we've been here 6 years right now, and we have turned out a lot of fine athletes in the professional wrestling business. The most important thing is that every 4 or 5 weeks we evaluate our students. Sit them down, talk to them, tell them where they're right, tell them where they're wrong. We try to give them the right steer, try to get them, to teach them directly. You know, guys like Paul Roma, who are working in our big for the WWF right now, is a student of ours, a former student of ours. Ted Arcidi, probably one of the world's strongest men, is a former student of ours. One of our dear friends and former Mr. Universe, Tony Atlas. Wait a minute. Drive him in. Let's go. Yeah. Come on. Quickly. Get him. Let's go. Take him.
Well, it's Captain Lou, baby, and I've had 17 tag team champions, 2 Intercontinental, and 1 World Champion. What I do is film my matches in entirety with my 9-on-1.72 camera, baby. Cost me 57,000 big ones. I sit in there, and within 10 seconds, I've got an instant replay. You've got to look for moving and grooving. You've got to have wrestling knowledge, wrestling balance, have it all together like my champions right here. Get a look at these 3 men, baby, and you know what I'm talking about. Taz, you've got to have the timing. You've got to have the speed. You've got to have the agility, and you've got to film in entirety. It's Captain Lou, baby, and I'm talking to you.
A successful professional wrestler is comprised of 3 elements: talent, appeal, and exposure. Keeping an objective eye on these elements and building a career from them is often the responsibility of a wrestler's manager. It's his job to act as a business agent for the wrestler. Not all wrestlers have managers. Some of them manage themselves, but most will admit that they find it much more difficult without someone else to arrange bouts for them. A good manager can provide even more than this.
Well, basically, the role that a manager can play is only in getting him the, let's say, the proper doors open. Today, you have 2 main organizations in the NWA and the WWF. And a manager, if he can get you #1 in either one of these 2 organizations, because they are the biggies today, #1. And #2, to represent you in a way to get you proper publicity and what have you, to have your name shown and to have you seen on television, that hopefully enough people will see you to the point to where they you become a name that promoters then recognize and start utilizing.
A good man, think about what you're going to do. They work for you. They tell you what to do. A good contract, to send you, book you place where you can make money. But the manager is only so much you can do. He can tell you what to do. He can tell you how to do. If you can't do, or you can't promise, or you can't produce the work, the manager can't do anything. But the good manager is a good man, honest man, and sometimes it's very hard to find. A good man, it's very hard to find to manage. The Avalada, there's a lot. I'm not saying there's no such thing. There's a lot of good, honest men. When the men say to you, well, today I'm going to really be honest to tell you this. But what happened yesterday? July yesterday. A good manager is good, but also you have to be intelligent enough and smart enough to see your own things.
Well, you need the energy, you need the eclectic mind of a genius. You've got to sit down, you've got to put it all together, you've got to write the words down, you've got to write the meaning, you've got to know what you're talking about, and you've got to film in entirety, and you've got to work with basic champions, baby. Low carbohydrate diet, high protein, keep it all together. It's Captain Lou. Do like I tell you to do.
The style of wrestling has been changing. Audiences today recognize a wrestler faster for their gimmicks than for their wrestling abilities. As a final preparation, we asked several veteran wrestling champions to comment on how wrestling has been changing over the years and what a new wrestler starting out should expect.
It don't change for the wrestler, the man himself, because the wrestler, they have to go in the ring and do their work. In other words, that's to say, they have to go in the ring and do what they have to do. But the wrestling changed because, why the wrestling today have a bad name? Because the promoter change, they want to be mixed with the movie star. You take a boxing, you put him in wrestling. You take a guy sing on television, a movie star, you put him in wrestling, and you call him show business. The wrestling, they cannot be called show business because most of the wrestlers, 100% of the wrestlers have a bad back, a bad knee, a bad neck, and everything else. So you can't call him a show business. Oh, sure, you put a little show business. The bad guy, you're going to say, when he scream to the people, when you walk out the ring and run around, sure.
You walk from the dressing room into the ring, you become an entirely different human being. You become a whole other person. You are functioning under another name, under another world, in another place. Personality changes are tremendous, especially when you got a little bit of an ego involved. So a lot of people say, why did he change his name? I know who he is. He's so-and-so. He chooses to change his name. He chooses to change his appearance because he is now demonstrating himself in front of thousands of people and he has a chance to fantasize, and of course he does. And that's where he does and accomplishes exactly what he wants to do.
The gimmicks. Gimmicks, to me, a lot of promoters years ago thought that they were necessary in a sense because they brought attention and they helped draw larger crowds. I never believed that for a second, and I fought against it. And in fact, I thought I proved to promoters that that was nonsense, because for 21 years, without coming across like a braggart, I think I was the top attraction. All I ever wore was a pair of tights and a pair of boots. I thought that the reason why I was the attraction that I was because of my wrestling abilities, what I did in that ring. You know, my record in Madison Square Garden, I had 211 main bouts in my 23-year career. Actually, I had 187 sellouts. So that tells you that people liked what they saw, and what they saw was wrestling.
I myself, speaking from experience, the captain and I were 13 years in the business. I loved to go out there and have the crowd.
As the Sicilians, I understand, right?
As the Sicilians, 13 years, the longest living tag team in the history of professional wrestling. And I loved the crowd to be against me. When the crowd was against me, it fed me what I needed to have, as opposed to signing autographs like a Tony Gurria or a Rick Martel or any of those other babyface-looking guys. See?
Right.
I didn't want that. I wanted to get a feedback from people who disliked me and called me names. I walked downtown in Pittsburgh, older people would be swinging umbrellas at me and whatever have you because they disliked me, but I liked that.
But that's what the wrestling changed today.
What's happened since now with the WWF and NWA, they've gotten so ridiculous with the gimmicks that the people that I talk to that see me, that's all they talk about is what a joke, what a circus it has become. So it's obvious to me that people do not accept this, they do not want this, and the proof of that is that unlike some people think that wrestling has flourished in the arenas, that's a myth, because you go to the arenas around the country and they are not drawing the crowds like we used to. I just told you my stats in Madison Square Garden, but anywhere else we went, we used to sell out more often than not. Now they can't. They go to the arena here in Pittsburgh and they'll draw 3,000 to 4,000 people, which to me is a disaster. Madison Square Garden hasn't sold out in a year. So that, to me, is the people speaking that they do not like it, they do not want it, they do not buy it.
And I like to see now, today, could the wrestling go back for the wrestling fan, a wrestling with like 10 years, 15 years ago, or 30 years ago, whatever. That's what you need today.
Well, I certainly hope so, because if it doesn't, I don't see much of a future for professional wrestling, because it is very obvious that people, at least the people that I speak to, and I travel this land all the time, people that come to me, it's all I hear is complaints about what has happened to wrestling. People remember my day, they remember Lutez's day, remember Vern Gagne's day, and they talk about the difference from then and today, and it's very clear that they do not like what has happened. They call wrestling today a circus, too much gimmick, too much nonsense, you see snakes, parrots, dogs. I mean, it has become a circus.
But today everything's changed. The whole system changed. Wrestling changed, the promotion changed, and everything else, including the wrestler.
Well, a new wrestler today has a hard time simply because there are not enough, as it used to be in my day, where there were more promoters and more organizations to go to. Today it's basically down to two main ones, and there are some secondary ones. Today, for a new guy to make it, he has to really be able to come in ready. In other words, he will already have to be a complete wrestler, that he can go to one of these main organizations and show him what he's got, and that show that he is in fact a talent that can be looked upon as a top talent right now if given the chance. Because in the older days, some promoters would take an up and coming young man and they would work with him. They would have some pros work out with him and gradually bring him along. Sadly, those days are over. Now when you come in, you have to be a top-notch guy just to get in.
A good wrestler, a mean wrestler, but also there's another point in there. You can be one of the best wrestlers if the people don't see you, could draw people, to draw money for the promotion. Now, when they say the promotion, because the promoter, if he don't draw no money, he can't be a promoter. How are you going to pay this talent? And the same thing in the baseball, the same thing in the football, or anything else. And the big companies, the same thing. If the men who work for you don't produce for you, you can't stay in the business. Wrestling is the same thing. But to compare wrestling with another business is all two different stories. Because the man, me, and all other wrestlers, top wrestlers, you put your body in. You make money, sure you make money, but that's why you suffer, because and the next morning you can't get up, your back and your knee and everything else. So you must make money when you wrestle, because you can't continue for that long. So it's two different things. Some wrestlers just want to show up because he's a wrestler, but he's not going to go nowhere. It's come from there.
So the advice, again, as I gave on a previous question, is that you have to prepare yourself, not only that you are a wrestler and live to where you are big, you are strong, you look great, you can move, all those things, so that when they see you and if they want to match you against one of the present so-called stars, you can go in there and maybe blow them away. Then I guarantee you, you have a chance.
Whoa, Nelly! And hold the presses. Attention, all you would-be wrestlers. Keep looking for Volume 2 of How to Become a Professional Wrestler coming to your video store. See more advanced moves and other how-tos shown by Bruno Sammartino, Shotgun Sheriff, Dr. Pleasure, Captain Lou Albano, and more. Meanwhile, this is the voice of the Tasmanian saying, see you on tape 2. Can we go to lunch now, guys?